Good evening, Long Island. Good evening, Long Beach, West Islip, and Massapequa Park. The skies above us are clear, and you've just been cleared for takeoff. On this edition, airplane noise. We all deal with it. The question is, how dangerous is it? This is a DC-10. Let's say that we are living over here, and this DC-10 is coming in over us at a low altitude to make its landing. It's not so much the noise that's really the issue as it is the output from the jet engines. In this case, you have three. You have one here, and one here that produce wake turbulence, we call it. When the aircraft lands, the real noise is usually heard at the airport in the form of the reverse thrust. So airplane noise is a big issue. The key is that the FAA has to regulate where these aircraft fly. Air traffic controllers have to assign slots to each aircraft, so this way pilots know exactly where they need to be, and more importantly, the air traffic controllers know exactly where the planes are. The real problem is Long Island is a very congested area. You have a lot of towns, you have a lot of areas, so you have to balance out where you assign these jets. It's also a question of weather. Weather plays a factor on where they are assigned to land. Sometimes they'll land on runway 22, sometimes they'll land on runway 13 at JFK. It all depends on the weather. And to my friends in Long Beach, when they land on runway 4 left, yes, they come over Long Beach. That's unavoidable. That's their approach line, that is their approach pattern, that's their assigned position. So indeed, in aviation terminology, approach pattern is when you are assigned a specific slot. Right now, this is our DC-10. We are on approach. We are FedEx 1902. FedEx 1902, you are cleared to land runway 4 left. 4 left is right here. I'm lining up with the localizer, which is a series of lights at the end of the runway. Now, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with airplane noise? Well, this is at the point where the pilot is throttling down the aircraft, but in the same, he's also maintaining a positive rate, meaning that he has his nose at a slight angle to make the approach. Once the aircraft touches down, he will then activate what are called thrust reversers. This is reversing the polarity of thrust inside each jet engine. Instead of it spitting out, instead of it being sucked in, it's being spit out. It's at a reverse. That's when you experience the most noise, the most decibels. A lot of the newer airplanes, such as 777s and 747-800s, are noise reductive, meaning that they have special devices inside the jet engines that reduce the noise footprint of the aircraft itself. So you won't hear it as loud as, say, an MD-80 or maybe a 727 would. So that's why we are experiencing the noise we're experiencing. We're witnessing a transition from old school to new school, meaning that we are going from class whatever to class 3, noise reduction. So we're seeing quieter jets. Now, I also want to address another big story that happened this week, the Delta disaster. As you may or may not have heard, Delta Airlines suffered a significant software malfunction in their computers, which caused all their flights to be grounded. Delta is the second largest airline in the world. I believe that we are too reliant on computer technology to guide us to where we need to be. I think one of the biggest problems that is affecting the airline industry is that we need to balance it out between humans and computers. There needs to be a fine line. You can't have one without the other. You have to have a balance. The idea of using computers in aviation is not new. We've been doing it for years. NASA does it. Air traffic controllers do it. The Federal Aviation Administration does it. It is not unusual. But when a computer malfunctions and it takes out an entire network for which the airline relies on, then you've got a very serious problem. That is the case with Delta Airlines. American Airlines used to use a system called Sabre. That was for their ticketing, and that was for their basic services. Well, Delta uses a similar system. In this case, their system controls their flights. It controls where each aircraft is supposed to be. It controls ticketing and so forth. Everything basically spontaneously stopped. And that is a major problem when you are the second largest airline in the world. They are still trying to recover the data that they lost and are trying to get back to normal operations. It will take them a couple of days. Now, if you are flying Delta, you will notice there is a significant slowdown. My advice is check with Delta Airlines, find out if your flight has been one of those affected. If not, you should be able to get out at a moment, a little later, but you'll get out. Otherwise, check other carriers and see what your options are. But I believe that one thing that has to be done is there has to be a passenger bill of rights. I believe that the aviation industry and the FAA need to come up with a universal system for dealing with something just like this. There has to be accountability, but more importantly, there has to be accessibility. In the airline industry, that is crucial. You have to have accessibility. You have to be able to access the service, or what good is the service? And that is a very important piece. You notice how airlines like JetBlue that are low cost haven't had that many issues, and the issues they have had, they dealt with. Delta will deal with this, and I believe that Delta will learn from this, and so will we as aviation consumers. Finally, my last piece of business is my aviation term of the week, and that is flight pattern. A flight pattern is an assigned spot or position for which the aircraft is expected to be. In this case, once again, we go back to FedEx 1902. FedEx 1902 is a heavy DC-10 that's coming back from Memphis, Tennessee to New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport. He is on a glide slope heading towards the runway, which in this case is 4 left. As he makes his approach, what I want you to notice is that the flight pattern is always changing. His attitude of altitude changes, and so does his pitch, till finally, touchdown and reverse thrust and putting the nose down. The main objective is to understand exactly where the aircraft is at all time. That is a flight pattern. That is an assigned area for which the aircraft is designated to be operating. That is your flight term of the week. And my name is Rich Kaplan, and you've just been cleared for takeoff. Have a wonderful weekend.